Welcome back to my channel, guys. I got an awesome patriotic door hanger for you guys today, inspired by Amber Strong, plus a bonus video. Stay tuned. We have DIY number one, this American flag wooden door hanger, and it's all real wood. This was inspired by Amber Strong on a live video on her social media page, and I had to make it. So I got a couple different blues. This is 2 blue from Apple Barrel Paint in the matte. Admiral Blue, of course. And then I only chose 1 red for this project. Flag red. It seemed appropriate. So we'll be working with that color for the stripes on the flag. And then we're going to need some black. You're also going to need some white, obviously, for the white stripes. You're going to need some antiquing wax by Waverly. Now, I wanted a really strong adhesion for this project, so you're going to need some E6000 and some hot glue. You're also going to need some spackle. And of course, your finger sander, your sanding block. Now, I got 3 of these chunky stars from the Dollar Tree. Amber did not fill in her holes on her stars, so we're going to do that on my project today. Now, these are the paint sticks on Amazon that come in a bundle without the handles on top. And they're as long as a regular gallon paint stick. Except for, they don't have the handles on top. You're going to need 3 of those. You're going to need 1 of these signs from the Dollar Tree, because we're going to use them silver stars on it. You're going to need a pack of these 15-inch shims from Home Depot. You get 42 for like $6.50. It's worth the money. You're only going to need 11 shims for this project. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is open this pack of shims, and I'm going to go through them, look at them. I want a rough look for this flag because I want it to look old and worn. So now we're going to cut the twine out of the stars. And before we start anything, I want to fill in them holes with the spackle. Because while I do everything else, the spackle can dry. And then when I'm done and I actually need to, paint the stars and embellish them, the spackle will be dry and I can sand off the excess. I'm just getting some rough edges off these stars. And I do this with all wood. No piece of wood is cut perfect without a rough patch. So I always sand my wood. And I'm going to do this with all 3 stars. Now I'm going to clean up my mess with my little ladybug vacuum cleaner. This comes in so handy. I did get it on Amazon for like $12. And it just picks up all the debris, all the tiny debris that's left on your desk after you're done making a mess. Now we're going to go ahead and get them chunky stars out. They're all sanded, so now it's time to fill in them holes. And the holes are deep, obviously, because it is a chunky star. So what I do is I like to take the spackle and I go in from the front first. I take, a chunk of spackle, I go in from the front, and I push it down until I can't push it down anymore. And I do that with all 3 of them. And then I flip them over, and I always make sure I leave a good amount on the surface of the star, because when it dries, it sinks a little. And then I flip them over, and I do the same thing to the other side. I leave a good amount on top, because it will sink when it dries. It shrinks a little bit. And then I'm going to tip the star on its side and let it dry. That's it for the spackling. It's really easy, and I use the Dollar Tree spackling. It works just as good as any other spackle on the market. Now that our stars are filled and drying, we're going to go ahead and open up this pack of shims. Like I said before, I want this door hanger to have a worn look. Like it's been through years and years of 4th of Julys. You know, out in the elements on my door for years and years and years. I wanted to have that aged, vintagey look. So I'm going to take out 11 shims. And some of the shims you'll notice are chipped at the bottom. A shim goes from the top down. It starts out a little bit chunky at the top and it gets really thin towards the bottom. On the thin part, you'll notice some of the wood may be broken off because it's really thin, and it breaks when they pack them up. I like those pieces because that gives it that extra wow factor. Now, if you'll see, the shim goes on an angle. So we're going to put them opposite. We're going to put the chunky side on top and then the thin side on top. The chunky side on top and then the thin side on top. We're going to do every other one like that. And I'm doing this for a reason. So we're going to lay out our 11 shims. And now remember, you're going to put the side you want to paint that's going to be facing everybody face down, because we're going to glue it from the back. So the front of our project is laying on the mat. Right now we're looking at the back of our project. This is where we're going to hold it together. This is where we're going to glue it. So if you want them really, really rough pieces, facing you. And some of them won't line up evenly, and you'll have to play around with the shims. Some you'll get a gap. If you get a really big gap, you know, put it back or rearrange them like you see me doing here. I'm like, okay, no, I can't have a gap that big. So I switched it to the other side, flipped it around, and there was no gap. Guys, I want you to be careful with these shims because I did get a few splinters and one hurt like heck. So just remember, watch where you're running your fingers. Now we're going to take those 3 handleless paint sticks that we got out of our Amazon package, and we're going to place them along the back of our project. Evenly spaced out. I think I put mine like an inch from the top and an inch and a half from the bottom, something like that, just because that's what felt most secure to me. Now, because we did every other shim, skinny, fat, the skinny pieces aren't going to adhere to this paint stick that we're gluing on the back. So we're going to use our E6000 and we're going to put a dot of E6000 on every single shim across the back of our project. And there's a reason for this. I'm going to show you in a second. And you're not going to need that much E6000. This tiny tube got me through this whole project. One little dot on each board. And make sure you try to get them in a straight line, because if you don't, your paint stick is going to be crooked because you have to follow the glue. After we apply our E6000 for that long hold, you know, that good adhesive hold that's going to last probably forever, we're going to go over it with hot glue for our temporary holds. And I do a few lines back and forth because this is my detail glue gun. I didn't feel like charging my big one, so I was being a little lazy here, guys. Yes, we all have our moments. And you see me going across, I'm following the E6000 once, and I go back, and I probably go back over it again. Now, we're going to put our handleless paint stick right over that glue line. And then we are going to pull up on our skinny shims. I want you to pull up on every skinny shim. I got burnt right there. Ooh, it hurt too. So we're going to press it down, make sure it's adhered to the ones that are touching, and then we're going to pull up on our skinny shims. We're going to flip it around, and we're going to press down. We are going to make sure that E6000 on every single shim is touching that paint stick. I must have lost some footage. I know I lost some footage towards the end of the video because I ran out of storage and I wasn't paying attention. Forgive me, guys. This was a hectic night. You see how I'm pushing the skinny ones down? I am making sure they are hitting that paint stick on the back. Because otherwise it's just going to fall off, you know, if it's not stuck to anything. Now we're going to flip it back over. And we're going to do the same thing for our second and third paint sticks. The E6000, a dot on every board, hot glue. Put your paint stick down and then flip it over and press down on those skinny shims to make sure they're hitting that paint stick in the back. Now I'm going to fast forward past this because it's a repetitive process, obviously. And you're going to do that for all three paint handles. This is how it should look. And I want it to look like that for a reason. I want it to look like some of the boards are popping up because it is aged and weathered. Perfect. Came out perfect. I'm just going through, taking off some glue strings I see. And now we're going to need the antiquing wax. And what I'm going to do here is spray it with some water. I'm going to put some on a brush, put some on the project, spray it with some water, and then I'm going to wipe it away with a baby wipe. And this looks like it has just been stained. And you will see here, I put a good amount of the wax on each board. I forgot to put down my wax paper first so I don't make a mess. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm getting out my wax paper and I'm putting it underneath my project because that way I don't have to clean this silicone mat. I don't have to clean no paint or any wax. I can just take the wax paper up, throw it away. Easy cleanup. I always do this when I paint something. I always put some wax paper under it. It's super easy cleanup and it just makes things easier for us, the crafters. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a generous amount of the antiquing wax on this project. I'm going to spritz it with a little bit of water. And I'm going to wipe it all away with a baby wipe. And this looks so good. This method, guys, is so easy. And the reason why the antiquing wax is my go-to for the stain look is because it has no odor. I have 2 toddlers, and when you stain something, that odor is so strong. And, you know, you got to have proper ventilation. Yeah, sometimes, most of the time, I have to be outdoors to stain because it is that strong. And this just works wonders. Look at the wood grain. Look at how pretty it looks. It looks like it was actually stained. And not only that, it saves time. Waiting for regular stain to dry can sometimes take hours. This, I put a heat gun to it. It's dry in 10 minutes and I can move on with my project. So if you guys haven't tried this method before, please try it. You can thank me later. This is the easiest way I know how to get. I mean, look at how beautiful that is. Simply amazing. And that's all we're going to do for the front of this project. And I'm going to get around the edges. And I'm going to make sure every little piece I see is stained and filled in. And, of course, you probably need a new baby wipe, like right here. you know, it was saturated. So let me get another baby wipe and continue on. Now I'm going to fast forward this because I want you guys to see what's next. So we're going to skip past this part. You see me going around all the edges, making sure everything's stained. I take the heat gun to it really quick. You know, don't hold it there very long because it will bubble up. And now we're going to pop the stars off of this sign. Now behind these stars are like these little round pieces of wood that actually hold them to this tag. My little round pieces stayed stuck to the tag, and you really need those. So if you can, try to lift off the stars with that piece of wood still attached, and don't use a heat gun. As you can see, I just burnt myself. Those metal stars get really, really hot if you hold a heat gun to them. But I was impatient. I wanted this project done and on my front door. And that's where it is now, and that's where it's going to stay until after the 4th of July. So I'm just feeling it, making sure the project's not too hot, because we are going to start to paint the stripes. So let me pick this up, get it out of the way. And we're going to go ahead and sand these stars because they're dry now. So we're going to sand off all that excess spackling and get them all nice and clean and get ready to get painted. So go ahead and fast forward past this part. I'm just sanding off the excess. And here they are. They're all sanded and they're ready to get a coat of this antiquing wax. Now, the reason why I do this step first, if everybody's like, oh, you're just going to paint over a blue, why even do that? Because it gives the color blue a different look than if I didn't stain it. If I didn't stain it first and then I painted it the blue that I picked, it would have a lighter look. This is going to have a richer color. Now we're going to go ahead and paint our white stripes. This part is a little tedious because you don't want to get the white on either side of the board that you're painting. You want it just on that board. And I apply it heavily, and I do several coats because I want that really, really white look. And don't forget, I'm going to sand over this eventually when it's done being painted. And I don't want to sand over it and get the real wood. Sand, you know, so much that I sand past the paint and the stain and get the color real wood. So I put a thick coat on. And I tried not to get it on the board on either side. Now we're going to take this flag red and we're going to do every other board just like we did the white. And be careful here with the same thing. Don't get it on the boards next to it. Another thing I want to mention really quick. When we go to sand our project, you do not want to sand the white and the red with the same sander. Use a different sander because if you don't, all of your stripes are going to look pink because the red is going to be on the sandpaper, the white is going to be on the sandpaper, and it's going to transfer. So all your stripes will end up looking a pinkish color. So just remember, have a different sander for each color. One for white, one for red. And do not mix them. Now that our stripes are painted, we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint these stars because they are dry. And I am going to take this blue. I'm using Admiral Blue here. And I'm only going to add like 2 or 3 dots of the black. Literally a little tiny squirt of the black, and I mix it up really, really, really good. You want to make sure that's blended because you don't want any black streaks in your blue paint, obviously. So one drop, 2 drops. That's it. That's all you need. And with this apple barrel paint, it really does stretch. You don't need a lot of this apple barrel paint. Of course, unless you want a lot, like I did with the white and the red. You really don't need a lot, and the coverage is phenomenal. So I'm going to go ahead and paint all my stars blue. I'm going to do the sides, I'm going to do the fronts, I'm going to do the backs. You don't necessarily have to do the back because we're going to glue them down anyway. But I like a finished look, so I painted the whole star. Now these silver stars that we only need 3 of, we're going to need the antiquing wax for those a little bit later because I want to dirty them up. But before we put our stars on, we need a hanger, right? So I figured the best way to do a hanger is I got these super large popsicle sticks from Walmart. And they're actually called giant craft sticks. There's 45 in a pack and they're like $4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue one to the back of one of our paint sticks. And then I'm going to take the other one and glue it on top, but I'm going to give it an overhang. And then after I glue it, I am going to staple it right into that paint stick. Now you see me putting the staples in because that little overhang is what I use to hang it off my door, and it works perfect, believe it or not. You guys don't have to use this method. You can use twine. You can use twine with beads on it. You can use whatever type of hanger you want to. Macrame cording, whatever you choose. This is the look I wanted to go for because I didn't want the hanger. All my door hangers have hangers. That's why they're called door hangers. So I wanted it to just hang and you didn't see that string or, you know, the beads or anything. I just wanted it to look like one unit, one flag, and I wanted it propped up dead center in the middle of my door. I have a command hook on the front of my door. So if you add a hanger, like a twine hanger, your project's going to hang lower. I wanted mine up high so everybody could see it. And it looks gorgeous, guys. It really does. Now remember what I said about sanding here. Do not take the same sander and sand over the white and the red. Even if you have a block sander. I use the block sander for my white and I use the finger sander for my red. But if you have a block sander, use one skinny side of the block sander for the white, and in the other reverse side, the other skinny side, use it for the red. Please don't mix them, guys, because it will ruin your project. Now I'm going to take these stars, and I am also going to sand the edges. I want to give it that distressed look, that weathered, aged look. Now, I changed the sandpaper on my finger sander because we did use it to go over the red stripes. So I'm just going to go around the edges of each star, real light, nothing serious, to give it that outline, that pop. As you can see, the whole star is blue currently. And when I take this finger sander and go around, you can see the edging. You can see a little bit of the wood being exposed. And that was the look I was going for. I always go in a downward motion when I do the edges of things like this. And it wasn't enough for me, so you're going to see me go over the points a little bit and get some of that wood color on the points because the edges weren't enough. I needed something extra. Now, after I'm done sanding all of these stars and getting it to my liking, I'm going to take this little broom from the Dollar Tree and just dust them off a little bit. Get that extra debris and paint, what have you, off of the star. And this is what it should look like when you are finished. Now we're going to go ahead and play with the stars and arrange them on the board. We're going to pick up our mess, get that wax paper out of the way. Nobody likes cleaning up a mess, so you got to make it as easy as possible for you. And this little broom, it comes with a little dustpan. It really comes in handy for little projects. It does. I keep one or two under my desk, actually, and I can't tell you how many times I've used it. So now we're going to play with the stars, and we're going to put them on our flag and see what's the best way they look on this project. And I'm going to tell you, I put my one star dead middle at the top. And I'm going to pull my project down so you can actually see it. And I make sure, I have one point in the middle facing up. And I put the 2 stars on either side a little bit lower. The point on the left and the right stars is going to match the indentation on the star in the middle, right before the bottom 2 points, if that makes sense. But you can see how I have them placed. And I'm going to go ahead and put some wax paper under it. And you're probably thinking, okay, why is she doing that? She said she does that when she paints. So what's going on? So we're going to take our Waverly wax. And I am going to run it over the stars. And I'm going to run it over the flag. The reason why I'm doing this is because it makes it look weathered, aged. I'm also going to paint our little silver stars with this wax. Does it rub off after it's dry? Absolutely does. It does. It will not stick to a metal surface like this. It will rub off with your finger, but that's okay. Because after these dry, I am going to actually take my finger and rub it off. I don't want the whole star brown. I want the stars to look like they are aged. So I only want that antiquing wax in the creases, maybe on the tips a little bit. That's it. I do not want the whole star to look like it was covered in antique wax. Now I'm going to take some of this antique wax and put it on a baby wipe. And I'm going to give a good coat of it over the whole project. I want that vintage look. And I am going to achieve it by doing this right here. See that? That's perfect. That's the way your project should look. Now, you do not have to do that step. If you like the clean white, just distressed and sanded, that's fine. You don't have to do this step. I like how this came out. So I did it right here to my stars in the edges. And I said, you know what? After I did the edges, I said, let me add a little bit more and go over the whole star. And this is how it turned out. Now, the footage I lost was me gluing on the metal stars. But you guys know how to do that and glue on the wood stars. This came out awesome, guys. Here it is, hanging on my door, front and center, and it just looks great. I couldn't be happier. I hope you guys love this project. On to DIY number 2. We're going to make some Glam napkin rings with these Shore Living napkin holders. They have like a cardboard wrapping around them to make them beach-like. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that wrapping off. It's really easy. It's held on by a pretty thick double-sided tape, but it's really easy to get off. You're going to need some detail scissors. And the reason why you're going to need detail scissors is because it has a clear plastic tape around them. So you're going to get your detail scissors and you're going to cut that plastic coating off first. You're going to take that off, and then you're going to take your nail and you're going to get right under that cardboard wrapping, and it should peel right off. Some of the glue may stick like it is here, And all you do is roll it with your thumb. Take your thumb, apply some pressure, and it will roll right off the napkin ring. It's as easy as that, literally. And I'm going to do this to 12 of them because I have a dish set that is for 12 people. I have 12 plates, 12 bowls, 12 cups. We have a pretty large family, you know, extended family and stuff like that. So I'm going to do 12 because when I set my table for large family gatherings, I do set out 12 plates. You can do 6, you don't have to do 12, but I am doing 3 packages of these. Now here we are, I got all 12 of them done. Everything's off, everything's clean, and we are going to bling these out, y'all. Now, I got this diamond wrap from Amazon. I forget how much it was, honestly, but if you go on there and look, I'm sure you can find it. And it is silver. And it has squares and it has circles. And we are going to do 6 squares and 6 circles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down. So we're going to do 2 strips of squares on each napkin ring. And then we're going to do 2 strips of circles. So we're going to have 6 with 2 strips of square gems on them. And then we're going to have 6 of 2 strips of circle gems on them. That was a tongue twister. And that's all I'm doing here is I'm cutting down this diamond wrap to fit around my napkin rings. I'm going to speed this up because it's just me cutting. And then when I get everything all cut out, I'm going to take a napkin ring and I'm going to cut it to true size. So I'm taking the circle beads and I'm putting it dead center in between the 2 lines. There's 3 lines on these, so there's 4 sections per napkin ring, and I'm putting it on the 2 middle sections. Now, the square gems fit perfectly. No gaps, no nothing. The square gems did not, however, and I'm going to show you how to improvise that little gap. And these came out darling. I put them on Etsy, I put them on my shop, I put them on Facebook, and believe it or not, more people than not, and I make sure and I tell them in the listing, these are acrylic, they're not real metal, they order these all the time. They are very, very, very pretty, and by first glance, you can't tell they're acrylic. They really do got that glam look to them. So all I'm doing here is cutting them down to size to fit around the napkin ring perfectly. Now you're going to see here, when I go to wrap the square gems around the napkin ring, there's going to be a little gap. Now obviously you could cut, you know, into the square and do a half a square, but I like my projects to have a finished look. So I am not going to do that. I'm not going to make it look weird or off or anything like that. So I am going to cut it so where there is still that little gap after I wrap them. And all you're going to need to apply these to your napkin ring is hot glue. That's it. All you need is your napkin rings, your gems, and your hot glue. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did with the circle ones. I'm going to cut 6 down to size. Now I'm going to speed this up. You don't need to see this. You guys know how to cut gems, I'm sure. And this is all I'm going to do. I'm going to take my squares and start with my squares. And I'm going to put a little dot of hot glue on the back of those first squares. Now, the reason why I have 2 separate strips here is because there was 1 separate strip on each side. So instead of wasting I'm going to do 2 separate strips. It's okay. It's going to line up. Everything's fine. So we're going to do 1 dot of hot glue on that first square, and we're going to attach it to our napkin ring. After those first squares are attached, it's easy after that. Wait for it to dry a little bit, a couple of seconds, and then we will go every 3 or 4 squares down, apply a little dot of hot glue per square, wrap it. 3 or 4 more squares, a little dot of hot glue, wrap it. And it's repetitive. The same thing with the round ones. A little bit of dot glue on every other one or every other 3, wrap it. Make sure you pull it tight because you don't want it loose. So pull it really tight and make sure it's as close as you can get it, just like this. Now, when I'm done doing it, I want to show you guys the gap that I'm talking about. And if you can see, it's a little tiny gap, dead center where it does not meet. And I thought, well, I'll put 2 of the circle gems in that gap, and it will be cohesive. Everything will match, circles and squares. What I failed to realize is these circles were a little bit bigger than I anticipated. And I said, crap, they're not going to fit. They don't look right. But then I remembered, the Dollar Tree has the diamond wrap in the garden section. And it has an adhesive on the back of it. I don't like to use the adhesive that's on the back of it because it leaves a residue when you take it off or they fall off. I use the diamond wrap from the garden center and the Dollar Tree with the adhesive on it, or you can use the diamond wrap that comes on a roll. I didn't have any of that on hand, so I did use the adhesive one, and I peeled it off of the adhesive. And I cut 2 gems out, and they fit in the middle perfectly. They are smaller than the round diamond wrap I got on Amazon. So I did that to the rest of the 6 that I did with the squares. And this is how they turned out, guys. I thought, hey, this looks good. I like these. And I would display these. And I have, and I've gotten many compliments on them. Where did you get them? I make them. Can you make me a set? Sure, no problem. So this is what my family does to me. So now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the circle gems. These fit perfectly. There's no gaps. They go all the way around and meet each other fine. So we're just going to put a dot of hot glue, wrap it real tight, every 3rd or 4th gem, and keep going until you finish however many you want. If you want to do all circles, do all circles. You want to do all squares, do all squares. If you find a diamond resin wrap, that would be pretty. You can do whatever kind of glam bling you want to, and I'm sure it would look fabulous. This is just what I chose. It works for me. So here they are, done. All 12 done. We have 6 wrapped in circles, 6 wrapped in squares and circles, and they look stunning. You plate them correctly, they look absolutely stunning. Hobby Lobby had these chargers. They're clear, and they had like, I don't want to say balls, but almost like balls are going around the edge of them, and they were painted in silver and gold. And I picked those chargers up, and I put those underneath my dinnerware. And I put these on top of my plates with a cute napkin in them, and they look gorge. Absolutely gorgeous, guys. And it's a simple DIY. It doesn't take that much time. It doesn't take that much effort. And you have them. You can put them away for special occasions. You can use them every day because they're not expensive. It's all goes to your taste and how you like to live. Whatever you want to do, that's how you do it, honey. And remember, guys, if nobody told you today, you're gorgeous, you're fabulous, you're the real MVP. I love you all. I love crafting with you all. Thank you for tuning into my channel. And here's some ideas on how to plate your napkin rings. I have done all different colors, styles, shapes, and sizes. And different gems even. These are Dollar Tree gems as well. And that's how they look. Guys, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and hit all notifications in the drop down menu by the bell. I'll catch y'all on the next one.